Let me recognize our colleague from Virginia who knows a little something about business. He came not only prior to being the former governor of Virginia, he was in the private sector, having built a very successful business in the cellular telecom industry. He is someone who is very active on the whole question of how we progress economically in the country. How do we have the private sector be a big aspect of that progress? What makes sense in a regulatory policy, in a tax policy, in fiscal matters, and it's my pleasure to have Senator Mark Warner with us here today. Senator.
Well, thank you, Bob, and apologize for being a little late. I know this has been a long session, and I want to echo what all of my colleagues have said already about Bob Menendez's leadership. This is good business, and Bob is a voice not just for the Latino community, but for kind of the best of what we hope on the Democratic side of the aisle to accomplish. I think what may be a little relevant, hopefully in terms of my couple moments of comments, is I think I'm the only other member, along with Bob, that actually I went to high school in Argentina growing up, entonces que puedo hablar en castellano, beyond Bob, the only other person at least on the Democratic side, que puede hablar, pero more importantly, though, I spent Bob made the mention that I was involved in the telecom industry. I was the co-founder of Nextel, so I am the only politician that says, even when I'm speaking, please leave your cell phones on. Doesn't bother me at all. But more importantly, was a venture capitalist. And as governor of Virginia, with one of the fastest growing Latino populations in America, recognize unless we can empower small women and minority-owned businesses, we don't have to do that only for social justice reasons. We just need to do that for plain good common sense business. My state now is 35% minority population. Adding women, it's obviously well north of 50. We're going to get our Latino population approaching 11%, Asian about 8%, and African American about 20%. And one of the things that we worked hard on, particularly when I was governor, was making sure that those programs to support minority-owned businesses actually carried some weight. Our state had some of the worst performance of any state in the country, and it was a great learning lesson for me to recognize that all of the dictates in the world, unless you are willing to have almost weekly reports from government agencies in terms of what their actual performance was, and then had an audit trail behind that, then you don't get things done. And the questions around certification and a whole host of other issues. And I frankly think there are a series of issues on that subject that we should be more focused on at the federal government level, number one. Number two, one of the biggest challenges we have in this economy right now is access to capital. And it is a particularly difficult challenge for business communities that don't have a long history of access to capital. And we have not done a very good job at that. We've been very successful at, I think, probably appropriately shoring up the largest financial institutions in the country in the midst of the crisis, but that hasn't then translated, as their balance sheets recovered, into lending into small business, and particularly a small business that might be minority-owned. We passed a small business lending legislation over a year ago. I don't know about you, it would have concerned me a great deal. It took Treasury close to a year to get those dollars out, and only now, in the last 60 to 90 days, are some of those capital access programs and others actually moving forward. But we are going to need your help, advice, counsel on how I think using not just this forum, but all the other business forums, if we don't help grow your businesses, then we are not going to be able to come out of this potential of a double-dip recession that we're looking at. The notion that Fortune 500 companies alone are going to lead this economy to recovery is just not correct, particularly companies that will focus themselves where they can get simply the cheapest labor, best tax deal, and oftentimes don't feel the same kind of long-term obligation back to the community that I think many in this room feel. So I hope that in some small way that I can work with Bob and with all of you on these issues. I've been a little obsessed to the point that when senators see me coming toward them, they walk the other way. I was part of this so-called gang of six trying to put together a $4 trillion debt reduction package that would be balanced, that would include revenues, that would recognize we've got to, make our entitlement program sustainable. I frankly feel that it is, if we can't get that done, we are going to be in great jeopardy because the actions that we took at the end of July as a Congress and as an institution, I was very disappointed in. It was almost like we inflicted harm upon our whole economy by robbing business and the American people of the confidence that we could step up and get the job done. And that, with an economy that's as been on the brink as it is something that is of enormous concern. So whether it is questions around regulation, whether it is access to capital, and I was proud to be one of the largest funders of minority-owned businesses out of my venture capital firm called Columbia Capital for a number of years, as somebody who's put in place real audit trails on what the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we managed to quadruple our amount of state business we did with minority-owned businesses while I was governor. Now, we went from really, really bad to just awful, so it was not, but it was progress. And I think some of that same kind of focus and attention needs to be done at the federal level on some of these programs. But I hope that we'll get a chance to work more closely together. And recuerdo cuando necesita una persona que pueda hablar en castellano. No solamente Senator Menendez, Senator Warner también. Gracias.